We are live at 11:05. This is where our two worlds intersect if you're watching us live right now. I got to cut some glass, and I'm going to just show you how to cut some glass. This is what we're going to do. This is laminate. A couple different kind of glass. There's tempered glass, which if like a side glass in your car, if you hit with a hammer, it breaks into a million pieces, or the back glass in your car. Your windshield is a laminate. What that means, there's two pieces of glass. With a plastic in between it, which is something what absolutely you have to have it. So if I take and I break this glass, it doesn't come apart in a bunch of pieces. It just breaks, and you don't have all the shards to cut you with. So absolutely never, never, ever use just plate glass in a side glass or in your windshield. It may be a little bit cheaper, it may be easier to cut, but I mean, when you stick your head through it and it cuts your jugular, it's not going to be a good thing. Here, it'll put some dents in your head and leave some shards when you hit the windshield at high speed, but hopefully that never happens. But never, never, never use plate glass in a car. So this is laminate. This is a side glass for a Model A coupe that we've got to get delivered here. It's going out the door this afternoon, and I got to cut it. About a year, how long ago we get, by the way, I'm BC. This is Spirit Cars live at 11:05, and Josh's voice of Spirit Cars behind the camera there. We bought out a inventory of a glass company that went out of business, but what, about a year ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And I figured, how hard can it be to cut glass? I mean, it's not hard, but you better know what you're doing. For the first 6 months, 8 months, I don't know, a year, I would dread coming back here. I mean, I'd start sweating and doing, and just to cut a straight piece, and I just didn't have it. Didn't have the technique, didn't have none of it. And so I'm pretty much self-taught and was doing all right, got it figured out pretty good. By no means am I an expert right now, but I did watch a few YouTube videos, and that was very helpful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some of the techniques I've learned, and they seem to work out. Again, this is a colored glass. It's probably a smoke color. We got clear glass, there's green, there's bronze, there's a bunch of different ones. You can use a straight edge. I'm cutting, this is for Model A, so it's a straight side window. I have found personally, I've got my cutter, and I've got a little oil on the cutter here. So I put the cutter back in the oil, and I kind of work my hand on it to make sure there's no chips in there. And these are all tips coming from not an expert, but I've got pretty good at it. So I'm not breaking glass every time I do it. I had my pattern. I kind of traced my pattern. This is for our Model A coupe. But I like to, rather than go along the edge of this, which you can do, I treat it more like a striper would. I can pull a pretty good line if I got my glasses on and see it. So I'm just going to take and all this is a roller in here. I'm going to pull it down the line. And I just scored only half of the glass. Remember, there's two pieces of glass here with plastic in between them. The problem I was having, I would score both sides and then try to break it. Well, that plastic in between them holds them together, so what's going to happen if I do that, when I break the top pushing down into the bottom, it wants to kind of chip the bottom or travel. So I figured out if I crack it on this line first, and all I've done is I didn't hit it hard enough to break all the way through, but I can see, and you won't be able to see on the camera, but I can see the oil that was on there. It's moving a little bit, and I can see it moving a little bit now. So I've got it broken on one side. It is glass, so it is sharp. Be careful, it'll cut you. There's gloves. These are plastic gloves. When we carry the big sheets, and the big sheets are very large, they're as big as this table, I always wear the gloves because it's so heavy if it would slide down. I mean, it will cut you. Hopefully we don't see any blood here today, but it does have that potential. It's glass. I've got the one side scored already. I've got my mark here, and I can actually see the score through it as well as the mark that I've made. So I want to be as close on top of that other line as I can. That way when the glass breaks, it's going to be even on both sides. I cut this earlier. You can kind of see it's even on both sides. Now, cutting glass is kind of like welding, MIG welding. I don't have to watch to know if you're doing a good job on the cut. It's that sizzle. When you're welding, it's got a sizzle that just sounds right. When you're cutting glass, it's almost a sizzling sound. If you're doing it right, it's working pretty good. I put a little pressure. Now this broke. I've got it broke. Now you can see it's coming down. Now since that's plastic in between there, temperature has a lot to do with it. It's summertime, it's coming into fall. It's still warm, it's pretty warm back here. I'm guessing it's almost 90 back in this area where we're working. A lot of people, you'll see it, they'll put some alcohol on this and light it with alcohol to melt it. I like that technique, except I like my carpet here, and I like carpet on the floor. It's what we got, and I don't want to ruin my table. You can kind of see my table from doing that. Every time I did it that way, I'd always have a fire, and then I had to put the fire out, and it was just inconvenient. So if it's something that I need to really do that with, I've got this little heat gun, and it's very, very warm on this tip. This you can actually weld plastic with, but you can use a hair dryer or something like that would work. But since today it's so warm, and I will be careful, I just put a little pressure of it coming down. Again, not too much because it's opening on the top, but it's pushing against the bottom. And you'll get these little clamshell looking cracks on there if you're not careful. I take a razor blade. Just keep cutting, don't get too impatient. Even when you're on live TV, you can't get too impatient. This is TV, what do you call it? What do you call this that we're doing? What did you call it, Josh?
Tech 101.
Tech 101. The whole TV thing, I've thought about that. Television. Well, that was a great name for it, television. Okay, so we cut this. It's a little bit jagged on the edges here. Not acceptable for a windshield, or a windshield would be fine, you glue it in, but not acceptable for side glass. I'm going to show you real close over here. And it doesn't have to be done with a wet sander, but absolutely a wet sanding is better. I've probably got a 120 grit on here. You can go with 80 if you're going to cut a big circle or something. But you can see if I didn't have water going on this, I put too much pressure on it, what would happen, the glass would actually start getting hot and it'd get red. So you could, and you put too much heat into it, you're going to wind up melting it. So it's going to be loud for a second, but I'll just kind of show you another trick while I'm thinking about it. All this water coming through is going through the same thing, so the glass, the dust from the glass is coming onto it and getting onto this. I keep this wiped clean every once in a while, because what will happen when I'm going back and forth here, the glass from the dust is moving back and forth, and I can actually scratch the glass there, which I learned the hard way. That's not what you want. See the water coming down? Run down. Run it down, then I'll usually kind of get a little bit of brown on the edge there. Round on the edge there. You don't need to watch me sand this all the way, but you'll see I'm getting a pretty nice edge here. So this is still high, and this one is low here. So what I'll do is I'll sand this until they're both right on top of each other, and you'll actually, you can see it here, some of this plastic in between it will actually start to show a little bit. Clean that plastic off of there and sand it till you get a nice edge. And you don't want any, you know, it looks like I've got a pretty good cut here. I've got a very, very minor, what I'm calling a clamshell, but that'll sand out. But you don't want to see those things. Sometimes when you look at windshields or side glasses, you'll see a lot of that, and that's just a poor cut. I'm going to finish up with, we'll see how good I am. I'm just going to kind of freehand this, but it doesn't have to be straight. You can cut a curve. Let's just say you're cutting a windshield and you chop the top on a car and you cut the windshield, and you got to cut the windshield to fit the new shape of the car. You may have to do multiple cuts. You know, I can't do a round like that and then expect to be able to cut that. I may have to cut this piece and a couple smaller ones, but if I go around like that, I got a pair of channel locks. I put tape on it to kind of soften it up. This is a tool, actually a glass tool, and I still put the tape on it to soften it up. But this is beveled into here, and what you do when you push down on it, you're actually cracking your edge, which I'm not going to do with this one, but I'm going to try to just break it nice and even and get that first little break I was telling you about before. Now again, I want to try to stay as close to that line as I can. I can see through it since I cracked it. The glass on one side is actually broke through. Now if I was grading myself on that, by the sound of it, that's not a very good cut. These tools, they're almost throwaway. They're not really expensive, but if you see on here, there's a bunch of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 6. You start with 1, you can loosen the screw and then change your blade. The blades get dull pretty quick. So this is time for a change of the blade. And you cannot score back over the same score twice. If you don't think you got it right and you try to score it a second time, I can almost guarantee a failure there. But I've got it, now you can see I've got it broke. Now on a curved one like this, it's very important. This would be a good time for either heat here, or if I had the alcohol, I could just put the alcohol on it, light it on fire. The heat from that will, you'll melt it enough to get it open, and it'll work pretty good. But again, the only reason I don't do it is because of my table and my carpet on the floor. It's just, you keep on burning it, you keep on burning it, and all of a sudden you ain't got much carpet left. So we can cut a curve. I can sand that. It's not that hard. Practice makes perfect in a sense. There's nothing such thing as perfect in this world, but when we first started doing this, if you would have asked me to cut that curve, I would be, oh no, how am I going to do that? I was sanding off more than I was cutting, just because I was so afraid of the crack. So it's not that hard. It's, you know, laminate is fairly expensive, so it'd be easy if you could practice on some pieces before you take one big piece and say I'm going to cut my door glass, or especially if you chop the top on a car. Some of them old windshields are hard to come by. I would practice a little bit before you cut up a good windshield. So here's today's tech. Our time kind of converged today. I had to get this done, and hopefully this was helpful for you. We're glad you joined us. Tonight we are going live at 9 o'clock. I got a special project I want to do with my grandkids, so I think we're going to do that. We still need a name for tonight's show. We've got some good ones. I like that. And whatever the name's going to be, it's going to be the head name, and then a flippin' cool show will be the rest of it. So I don't know if we got a prize for that decided yet, but whoever we come up with that shared name, we're going to give you something, because we hope to use that name for a while. Other than that, I don't know. You got anything else, Josh?
Nope.
Well, there it is for today. If you need to cut some glass, don't freak out. It's possible. Or you can go to a glass shop. So, thanks for joining us.